Sifu Rafael is the founder and host of Heroes Rising. He's hungry, driven, and bright. He's used his skills to develop a variety of multifaceted businesses in the martial arts and fitness industry. He's also a business and mental game coach and host of the Coaching Call podcast. Heroes Rising is proud to introduce you to our exceptional co-host, EA Csolkovits. EA created, designed, invented, formulated, and reformulated over 75 products in the health and wellness industry. He is the founder of Givers University, providing increased happiness, freedom, and greatness through personal, business, social, and family development. He is also a licensed commercial pilot.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Heroes Rising. I am here with some amazing people. My co-host, EA. I have Mike here and I have Gail. Everybody say a quick hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome, awesome. We have an exceptional show for you today. Wow. What can I tell you? I am so fortunate to have amazing people on my show. And guess what? They teach me every single time. Let me tell you about Gail. Wow, I had the pleasure of having her on Coaching Call. Gail is the co-founder of Gail Doby Coaching and Consulting. She's now changed it to the collective, and she's going to talk all about that as well, I'm sure. We'll give you a minute or two for that. You know, she has helped designers, architects, and other creatives increase their profitability. You're not going to believe by how much, but I'm going to tell you, 512%. Gail, that is insane. She's obsessed with sharing innovative ways to overcome the business roadblocks, challenges, and detours that entrepreneurs face when they do it on their own. Stop doing it on your own. Gail is going to be on your side. She's an entrepreneur herself, and she wears many hats, no matter what hat she's wearing. Her goal is simple: to empower entrepreneurs. Today, she will share with us on building resilience in changing and challenging times. Gail, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we'd love to hear how you're going to help us today.
Well, I'm glad to be able to talk on the topic of resilience because I think we need it right now. And we've just been through a really challenging time for all of us. And I don't think you all need reminders, but just in case, we've had COVID, and then we have inflation. We have the issues right now with interest rates going up, and we have an election that just happened. So we've had a lot of things that have been coming at us. And I think the number one thing that I would share with everyone today is that our first way that we can deal with that is to have a different mindset around what we're dealing with. And I think one of the things that I see most often is people get very wrapped up in checking their social media and checking the news. And this might be a really good time to turn both off and take some time to really reflect on what it is that's going to move you forward. And what I find is a tip that really helps a lot of people, which is to actually reframe your thinking. And the way to reframe your thinking is to get it out of your head and into some sort of a visual place that you can actually look at it objectively. So here's what I mean by that. So when I am talking to some of my clients and they get really stuck in their heads and they're just going over and over things. So I don't know how many of you are in a situation where excuse me, just one second. I think, are you all hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Because I was just seeing a note from EA that we weren't being heard. Okay. So one of the really big keys about this is to remember that we are emotional when we're thinking up here. And so our hearts are everything that's within us that starts getting our fight or flight response in place is happening when we're in an emotional state. So that's what a lot of people do, is they stay in this cycle where they are spinning out of control. They're repeating the same things over and over in their heads. And what's really happening is their whole amygdala is taking over. That's that part of the brain that tells us that we are in danger. And so the first thing we do is we focus on all the things that aren't working for us. And that doesn't work, because what happens is we start building a neural pathway in our brain that is telling us, oh my gosh, we really are in a dangerous situation. And yet we still tend to repeat it over and over in our head. So, one of the real keys here is to stop thinking about it emotionally. And the way to do that is to use a very simple trick, and that is to use a journal. And a journal is one of the most powerful things you can use to change your mindset and become a more resilient person. So here's what you do. At every time that you're feeling yourself getting into this spiraling signal in your head where you're starting to get scared and you're starting to breathe at a very high level in your chest, the first thing to do is just stop and breathe and go through a process. And I love this. I consider it a square box. So you breathe into the count of 5, you hold it to the count of 5, and you breathe out for the count of 5. And you do this 5 times until you've calmed down and your reactions aren't right at the top of your mind. Then the second thing you can do is get your journal out and write down the things that are bothering you at that very moment. And a lot of times they are things that are related to how you feel, and they're your emotions, but that doesn't really help you very much. And when we get into this particular situation where we are getting emotional, we're not actually able to get anything done. We get stuck in where we are at that very moment. So, what I would like for people to think about, and for you to think about personally, is that if you can write this down and you can articulate in words, even if it's just bullet points, what it is that's bothering you, you will be able to shift your thinking into a mindset where you can do something about what you're thinking about. So that's probably one of the biggest things, is to just shift your thinking and have a different mindset, remove the emotions and get into an objective mindset stage where you can do something about it. So it really helps for you to be able to shift your thinking first to be resilient. Then the second thing I would encourage our listeners to do is think about fear as an opportunity. And fear is often what causes us to be in a state that is not very settled. And fear is an opportunity. So if we can look at it as something that we can have an awareness about what we are getting triggered by and what we can do to shift that thinking, going back to that idea of taking out of the emotional state and into a state where we can actually do something about it, that will be helpful. And a third thing that we can do is use questions to reframe our thinking. So we can ask ourselves questions such as, why am I feeling this way? What is it about this that is triggering me? And is this related to something in my past that is coming back up? Because a lot of times, what is causing us to stop what we are doing and get caught up in our emotions is because we're reflecting on the past and areas where we can not necessarily be in a good mental state to be able to move forward and do something positive. So anyway, I think that those are a couple things that I would recommend. And then the other piece is I would ask for help, because a lot of times when we are going through a period of time where we're stressed out and maybe we're thinking about all the things that we have no control over, it just takes somebody who can listen to us and then ask for specific help. For example, what is it I'm thinking about that is not supporting what I need to be doing at this very moment? And if you can start asking yourself those questions, you can shift your thinking slightly. And if you can't do it yourself, get a friend to help. Because a lot of times we just need somebody else to hear us, somebody who's an empathetic listener. So then you can take what you're experiencing at that very moment, and you will be able to shift your thinking over to a positive mindset where you can
Mm.
actually move forward and do something really positive. And then finally, the other piece of this is to get into action. And getting into action is as simple as writing down what's the first thing I can do to shift my thinking, and what is the first thing that I can do to be in a place where I feel more positive. And if you are still unable to shift your thinking, then take a walk, take a break, go do something else that's going to allow you to really move yourself to a different level. So, those are the things that I would suggest to our listeners that they can use to be more resilient.
Well, I love the fact of taking a break and taking a walk, right? Just to give yourself that time to keep going forth. Um, what if you're in a,
Quick question for Gail.
okay, absolutely.
Gail, what would you recommend is one of the best ways when someone wants to reframe something that's coming at them in a way that's going to be a little bit more productive as opposed to woe is me? What would be a way or a technique you would recommend to help people reframe something quickly in their mind when it's coming at them and it may be a bit of a challenge?
Well, the breathing thing is the first thing, is just get yourself under control, because you're usually reacting in a very emotional way. And then the second thing is to use questions, because I love using questions to reframe my thinking. And when we're in a reactive state instead of a responsive state, then we always know that we're actually emotional. And so we can start thinking about, what is that other person thinking? What is their point of view? And what am I missing here? And sometimes it's just as simple as asking those questions, and we can shift over to a more positive way of dealing with whatever is coming at us.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the fact of just taking that time, right? To realize even where you are and what it is that you're doing when you think about the perspective of what we have, of how we become more resilient, right? What is the one thing, one advice that you would give? Let's say somebody does take that walk, take that break. What is the one thing that they should come back to?
Well, here's another way to quickly shift your thinking, and that is to shift into gratitude and take a few minutes to write down two or three things that you're grateful for at that particular moment. And that one thing will shift you into a more positive viewpoint, where you can then be open to other possibilities of what is in the back of your head. So I'm all about getting off of the circle, because a lot of people get into this loop or the spiral and they can't stop it. So those are a couple of things you can do. So breathing, and certainly being grateful, and then asking questions, because all of those things will help you break that cycle, because you want to break the cycle as quickly as possible. We don't want to create a neural pathway of all those negative thoughts in our head.
Right. And then I also always suggest getting a really good book, right? By the way, who wrote this book?
Geez, I don't know.
I think it was you, Gail. An amazing book. And I know that you talk about some concepts here and, business breakthrough. When we think about everything that you've written and the way you come across and you help other people, you had to do that resilience break for yourself, right? In order to find you, right?
Every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Does anybody ever stay in a positive state 100% of the time? It doesn't happen.
99%.
Okay, well, Rafael, I want that bottle of whatever you have.
I think EA is holding that bottle.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Look
got
at that.
And maybe Mike's got it too. Are you like 99% too?
Soon I'll have that bottle.
I won't even
definitely.
try to guess what percentage for myself, but I really think that resilience is a choice, and we can decide to be resilient, or we can decide to be in fear, and we can decide where we want to be on the spectrum of happiness or not. And it is, I know it seems hard to believe that we have a choice, but we do have a choice in what we think.
Yeah. I love that concept of we have a choice of what we think, because how many negative thoughts are coming our way every day? I'm talking about thousands, right? Maybe 100,000. And it's what we allow to come in, right?
Right. Absolutely. And those negative thoughts, I think, are, if you were to just take some time and just notice during a day, how much time do you spend going over all the things you did wrong and judging yourself, that's probably one of the biggest things that I see people do is they start judging themselves for not being good enough, and they're comparing and they're looking at, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, so therefore I failed at this. Where if you can remove that judgment from yourself and say, okay, well, that wasn't perfect, but what can I do from here? Gets you into more of a problem solving stage versus a judging stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gail, I don't have to do my talk because you just did it.
Oh,
So,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
That's what I was thinking.
So, is that Mike? You don't want to hear my talk?
Well, yeah, I don't need to talk.
I'm glad he said it.
Just said it all.
Mike
Well,
said
you
it.
know what, Gail? I got to tell you,
I'll shut up now.
no, not at all. We love it when like-minded minds meet, right? Because it's that, if you will, that mastermind. We're all thinking alike, and we're all thinking, how can we better ourselves? You know, Gail, thank you so much for being here and bringing so much, if you will, of a different perception that some people may not be thinking about.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to take this time to talk about my co-host. You know, I am so humbled that EA accepted my invitation to be my co-host on Heroes Rising. He's not your cut-of-the-mill coach or mentor. And Mike knows this because we are both in a program with him, and he's mentoring us both. He has had rooms of 50 presidents of companies pay him $5,000 each every month to learn from him. That's $250,000 for 3 days. Yes, 3 days. Could you work just 3 days to make $250,000? Well, EA did it for 2 years. I broke it down because, I'm curious. That's $6 million working only 72 days. That's crazy, right? If you want to learn and earn $1 million, who better to teach you than EA? He's done it. And today, he's going to help you guys. He's also the first person to have developed a profit scoring for companies based on what his mentor, Sam, taught him and what he learned from interviewing over 1,000 millionaires. EA has done it. He's going to teach us. EA, my friend, take it away. I am ready and got pen and paper to listen and learn.
Thank you so much. And we were in the background looking. Apparently, there might be a fan or something going somewhere. It's making extra noise. So hopefully, I can overspeak it if the fan is interfering. Because
you know what? I'm gonna interrupt you right there. I think that you have fans all over the world. But I'm just saying, Now,
all right. But now, what's that address I should send a check to? Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. So I'll speak up a little bit just in case, because we don't know what seems to be a tiny background noise and we're not able to determine what it is. So hopefully it's not an issue for anyone. And thank you for those kind words, Rafael. And it was such a blessing. And interestingly enough, I was on Rafael's podcast interviewed, and also Mike's podcast is a True Man podcast, and on both of theirs, as a matter of fact. And what was interesting was it is, water does reach its own level, and there are people that automatically they sort of gravitate to each other, and because they're of like mind and like spirit. And I really appreciate the fact when Rafael said, hey, I'm founding this thing called Heroes Rising, and I want to do 1 to 2 events a month, and how would you feel about maybe co-hosting? And I said, man, I'm in, let's do it. And it's been great. And that was over a year ago. So it's really been a blessing. And Rafael, I will share with you, and I'll talk with you a little bit more about him later on, but he actually is quite extraordinary. So I'd like to share some slides with everyone. And let me
please do
up here. There we go. All right. The milkman mindset. Right. My father was a milkman. And I was raised that way. At 5 years old, he actually had a truck not too dissimilar from that from Twin Oaks Dairy in Chicago, Illinois, where I'm originally from. And he would get up at 3 a.m, deliver milk, right? And very average upbringing. He had his own business. It was a distributorship for Twin Oaks Dairy, and his distributorship basically consisted of that truck. This is not my father, by the way. It's not exactly him or the truck, but certainly very, very similar. And I remember those kinds of bottles he's holding, and even those carriers, right? And back then they had milk was in glass. I don't know if you remember, that was in glass containers. It wasn't plastic. And I'm still pretty sure they went to plastic because of how many glass ones I broke when I was helping my father on his route. So I think at some point they said, we've got to take a look at this a little bit different. So on more than one occasion, I came back around the corner with 2 plastic handles and white shoes, from the milk on the shoes. But I was raised as the son of a milkman, right? So there's a certain mindset with that, right? I mean, I watched my father get up all the time. He got up at 3 a.m. and, he'd go chop these big blocks of ice because none of the trucks were refrigerated. And I watched him do this every single morning. He was back by 2, 3 in the afternoon. And it was his own gig. So, I was sort of wired into, having your own business, sort of what I later on began to call a one-trick pony. And that's what my father was, But the interesting thing was he had a route and he had this book and he put in these points, that were associated with each one of his customers. And the interesting thing was that no matter how hard my father worked, there was only so many doors he could go to and fill up that milk box, the little gray milk box outside the door. There was only so many of those he could go to in a day. And it was a very average upbringing, nothing unusual about it. I lived, that was the way I was. I always knew we had plenty to eat because my mom was always telling me, no, you've had plenty to eat. So I knew we had plenty to eat. So, so that was the way it was, average upbringing. But I had a milkman mindset. And that, of course, led me to my next exciting first venture in my life, which was elevating into the janitor's lifestyle. Cleaning offices, cleaning bowling. Let me tell you, you want to be unmotivated? Go and clean a bowling alley at 2 a.m. and escort the drunks out that are passed out behind the bar. And we won't even talk about the bathroom at 2 a.m. So, but that was at 2 a.m. cleaning Brunswick bowling alleys, right? Because of my milkman mindset, that translated into my janitor lifestyle. Now I didn't mind being a janitor because business was always picking up. What? Anyway, so here I was as a janitor working all of these hours every single day. But again, it came down to how many buildings could I clean in a day? I mean, really, my father, whether he knew it or not, was trading time for dollars. I did not realize I was trading time for dollars. There's only so many places I could clean, only so many bowling alleys because there's just 24 hours in a day. So no matter what, I really wasn't getting ahead, right? Because I had the milkman's mindset and the janitor's lifestyle. I was living the life of a janitor. And that's basically what happened. And then I was fortunate enough to meet a man that changed it all, Sam Robbins, who was my mentor. And I was very blessed to meet him at an early age, my late teens. And one of the things he began to teach me was the difference between an educated idiot and a mentor. Now, I can share with you, I have met thousands of educated idiots. Educated idiot basically is a person who's read it in a book, and they're going to ask you to pay them to spew all the information back at you. But something very critical has transpired. They have never done it. So there's a big difference. Now, by the way, coaching is great. Advice is great. Consultants are great. They all have functions. But a mentor is a different relationship. It's much more intimate. A mentor will get into and say, okay, why are you thinking that way? Why do you have the milkman mindset? Only thinking you're worth as much milk as you could deliver. Why are you living the janitor's lifestyle? So I had a lot of burnt out wires in my head. And my mentor began to rewire my mind because he had done it. He was declared Detroit's youngest self-made millionaire, also earned $1 million in the heart of the Depression when people are jumping off of buildings. So a very special individual. And I was blessed to meet him, and he began. So I want to share that all the things that I share with everyone, that I'm blessed to share with everyone, I did not make up any of it. I'm just a conduit. I was dumb enough to believe I can do it. What? Number 2. Anyway, so that was it. I listened to my mentor and began to do what he said. It was really simple. It's so much easier when you just simply find someone. So many people say, well, yeah, I'm just going to listen to that person. I'm listening to them. And I watch them run all over the place, and all the media and the social media gurus are going to teach you how to make $1 billion overnight. And here's what you do. And the fact of the matter, those people are only making money off of people paying them for their course or whatever they're teaching, because that's the only money they're making. They don't really have never done it themselves. My mentor had made it in business. He had made it. And what he brought with him was so critical, because it's the things that don't work that teach us wisdom, not the things that work. And when someone has many things that have not worked and they've experienced in their life, they automatically become wise because they have the scars on their shins to prove it. And my mentor was certainly very, very wise. So when you're going ahead on your life, there's two things that you need to have. One is you must have training. If you do not have the right training, you will not make it. And if you make it by accident, it won't last. I've literally interviewed, when I had my radio talk show in years past, I interviewed a $10 million lotto winner who said it was the worst thing that ever happened in their life. And on the air said, today, if they had the chance in retrospect, they would tear up the tickets. And yet everyone wants to win the lotto and get $10 million. They said it was the worst thing. And the list is long of the reasons they gave me. And it was quite eye-opening. But the point was, see, they never did it. A person can sort of all of a sudden get a bunch of wealth like that, but it never lasts. And usually there's a bigger price to pay. So when you want to have the proper kinds of training, and that training needs to come ideally from a mentor who has done it. Find out what you want to do, and seek the best. When I wanted to be a commercial pilot, I found this man named Taki Constantine. And I got to tell you, he turned out to be one of the best instructors I ever had. And when we first went up together, I landed the plane. He asked me, looked at me and said, what the heck was that? And I said, well, that was a landing. He says, no, that wasn't. That was a crash. He said, that was a crash. And I said, but I passed, I'm a private pilot. I passed. He goes, that's not a landing. He said, you're going to scare the living daylights out of all your passengers, not to mention they're all going to throw up because you just jarred their stomach so much doing a brick 3 approach on the runway, called the brick 3 approach, right? And he said, I'll teach you how to land the plane. Why? He had done it. So the point I want to get across is, from a training perspective, one of the two things you need to be wealthy is you have to be trained by someone who has done it, not a wannabe. Simple way to find out if they've done it. Always be willing to ask one question. Can you tell me what you've done? And if that doesn't hit the grade, move on. So be trained by a mentor, someone that's done it. Now, this is really interesting. My mentor, I love this phrase, years ago he taught me. And he said, in business, you want to make sure you don't end up with a buggy whip. And I said, well, what's a buggy whip? He said, well, how many people do you think today are using buggy whips? I said, well, not too many. Everyone I know's got a car, right? He goes, well, years ago, buggy whip was a good business, because you needed them for horses, and they had buggies. They didn't have cars yet. He said, but you don't want to get locked into it. And he said, and sometimes people get caught up in things because they fall in love with it. He said, don't fall in love with your buggy whip. Fall in love with your customer. Don't fall in love with your brand. I see these people, brand, you got a brand, you got bunch of baloney. The most important brand is your customer's brand, not your brand. I got news for you. Your customer doesn't care about your brand. They don't care. They really don't. But they will care if you can show them how to improve their brand and how they can make more money as a direct result of the relationship. So don't get caught up in having a buggy whip or a vehicle in business. That's the second thing. First was training, be trained by a mentor. And second, have the right vehicle. I see so many people. Don't we, even as speakers, I ask you, don't you see so many people posting, social media. And they are not monetizing. And I had a guy yesterday tell me the other day, he goes, he says, the younger people today, they really don't care about making money. And I said, okay, I have to say this. You're lying to me. He looked at me big. I said, I'm sorry. I'm an equal opportunity offender. I think you're lying to me. I said, they want to make money. I said, you show me someone doesn't want to make money, and I'll show you someone that lies about other things too.
Right.
I said, so what you're really telling me is maybe they're not motivated. What you're really telling me is maybe they're not inspired. What you're really telling me, because everyone wants the Rolls Royces of life, Who doesn't want that, right? And he says, well, there's a lot of people just want to sort of get by. And I said, no. I said, then that's not a business. We call that a charity. That's what we call that. And I see a lot of social media charities right now going on because they're not making any money. And I'm sorry, one of the primary objectives of business is to make money. It is to make money by having a product or service that's far above all your competitors and delivering a greater value to your customers than anyone else. That's a primary objective. So don't get caught getting a buggy whip. Don't get caught into having a vehicle that is no longer necessary or used. Now, this is really interesting. I'm going to share a story with you from my mentor. He told me about this place called Belle Isle in Michigan. And Belle Isle, it was over 100 years ago. They wanted to clear this island of all of these trees and make it into a park. So they began to do this. And they hired a contractor, and they paid him a pretty good wage. They paid him $10 for every tree. Now, if you notice the technology here, back then in 1900s, they didn't have the ones you poured gas in. This is how they cut down trees back then, right? I mean, you had an axe and maybe a maul and, and a saw, and that was it, two-guy saw. So they paid the contractor $10 a tree. And the contractor quickly found out no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't chop down more than 4 trees a day. Well, 4 times 10, he made $40 a day, which back then was a good wage. 5 days a week, he made $200 a week, hence the $200 a week in our example here. But he began to think about something. He thought, you know what? For the rest of my life, or however long this takes, I'm only going to be trading time for dollars. I can only cut down 4 trees a day. I'm not able to cut down anymore. My body will not handle it. My calluses, how big can they get? How much can I swing this axe? There's only 24 hours. He realized he was what I call a one-trick pony. So he got it in his mind, thought, you know what? I'm going to hire someone. And he hired a friend of his. And he said, you know what I'll do? He said, I've got to chop down all these trees. I'm getting paid, but I'm the contractor. So I'm going to split what I get with you if you'll cut down some of the trees. So he gave a friend of his $5 on every tree, and he got $5 on every tree because he had the contract and he was a contractor. And then it really started to gel. And he says, this is great. And he hired 10 workers to cut down trees. Now watch how this works out. It's a very profound story and a very simplistic message. And that is, he hired 10 people. They all were able to chop down 4 trees a day, just like he did. No more, no less. And he paid them each $5. But he also received $5. So do the math, right? If he got $5 a tree, 4 trees a day, right? 5 times 4, $20 times 5, that's $100. Every week he earned $100 off from the $100 that the workers were getting as well, because he split it 50-50. He got left with 100. He paid them 100. He had 10 of those guys. So 10 times 100 is how much? 1,000. Plus he still earned the $200 himself because he was still chopping down 4 trees a day. So he made $1,200 a week by having 12 other people chopping down trees. Big difference between $200 a week and $1,200 a week with him doing the same amount of work. By the way, just for the heck of it, for giggles, I looked at what the value of $1,200 was worth in 1900. Today's dollars, $35,000 a week. In today's dollars, at the $1,200. So, is there a big difference in duplication? Yes, and it's one of my mentors said, as he shared with me, and that's our next slide, and that is duplicate or liquidate. My mentor drilled that into me. He said, you need to be trained and you need to have a vehicle. If you do not have those 2 things, you will not be wealthy long-term. You need to be trained by a mentor and you need to be able to duplicate whatever your vehicle is. If you're not able to duplicate it, you will automatically be trading time for dollars and you're a one-trick pony. You'll never make the big money doing that, right? And so and he kept saying, so duplicate or liquidate. Every vehicle we get in our business relationship together, as he was speaking to me, he said, we will craft a way where we can duplicate it, just like the logger who had the contract on Belle Isle. He went to today's equivalent, $35,000 a week. It's not a bad income. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay. Right? So $35,000 a week is not a bad income to get by in today's dollars. but he only did that by duplicating. So if your vehicle, as you're listening to the sound of my voice, is not duplicatable, you have the wrong vehicle. You need both. You could be trained by a mentor, but have the wrong vehicle. You could be trained by an educated idiot, but have the right vehicle. You need to have a mentor who's done it and the right vehicle. When those two pieces come together, you will have the ability to become wealthy. And that's really the message that I wanted to get across to everyone today. Those two things you need, training by a mentor and the proper vehicle, so you're no longer a one-trick pony. And I see a lot of one-trick ponies, a lot of them, right? So if you want to find out more about Givers University, you can go Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellness, or you can also go to our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel actually is on, and on YouTube, by the way, they give you handles now. I don't know if you noticed that, but so if you go to YouTube and you have a YouTube channel, go there and find out that, and they have a handle, which ours is at Givers University. And if you already have your name, that's the same as your channel. You can put the @ sign in front of it now, and that's your supposed easier way for people to find you on YouTube. So at Givers University is our handle for that. And nice. Sign up.
So what were you drinking there?
This actually is the most amazing thing ever. The think tank at Givers University has done something and invented something that will literally creatively destruct through innovation a $100 billion industry in the next 10 years.
Wow.
It will destruct it. Now, two things that we see every day. People eat foods. We see people taking vitamins. 85% of the American public today takes vitamins as an open acknowledgement that everything we need is not in the food. Because if it was in there, they wouldn't take the vitamins, right? The think tank at Givers University figured out how to put both of them together. And 10 years from today, no one will be taking vitamin pills ever again because of what Givers University does.
Wow.
No one will be taking $1 trillion industry is being built and launched as a direct result of that. So what this is here is actually one of the first products that will be coming out soon. It's called Giver Water. And this drink, which by the way, tastes better than Sunny D. Right now, Sunny D is the #1 selling orange drink on the market. Tastes better than Sunny D and has 30 vitamins and minerals built in it. And it's an actual drink. So what mom wouldn't want to give that to their kids? The sweetener is monk fruit, no sugar in it whatsoever. And 30 vitamins and minerals. Yeah. Oh yeah. The Chocks from Flintstones vitamins, they give them to the kids and they're chock full of sugar. That's what they're chock full of. Right. And
yes.
So anyway, we're coming out with that. The think tank's coming out with it. And if you want to hear more about it, then actually you can talk to either one of these two gentlemen. They're heavily involved with Givers University and what the think tank has invented. It's a new invention. Never existed before. Quite extraordinary. So thank you very much, Rafael, for allowing me to be able to share that information.
And I know that you're going to be introducing us to an amazing individual as well. So
Correct.
You're going to be talking to us about Mike.
That's right. Mike Van Pelt is, I got to tell you, it was great being on his podcast. It really was. I mean, the guy was just fun and, easy to talk to and comfortable. And do you know how there's certain people that it just seems like they're easy to talk to? And there's other people that brighten up a room by leaving it. Right. So Mike's one of those people that he's for some reason, yep, you're not one of those. He is just easy to talk to. And that really is a great empowerment for him because he does a very unusual and specific kind of coaching, which is actually quite excellent. He actually helps people and helps men that are participating in Christian men's groups, and he helps them take back their lives. We've had so many things that have, like Gail articulated it so well and so masterfully, and the many challenges that have faced us. And Mike helps people understand you have a God-given right to choose what you think, what you say, and what you speak. And it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of all the things happening in the world, in our life, or being taught by educated idiots and all these things. And Mike is one of those people. He's just easy to talk to. And he loves everybody. I mean, it's just easy to, and because of that, he has got quite a growing list of men specifically that he helps them get back on the beam, if you will, where they're getting up in the morning and now they feel like there's hope back in their life. And don't we need more hope today than ever before? We really do. There's so much hope that's just missing. But it's not in people's eyes anymore. And Mike helps put the hope back in their eyes. You can see the glimmer after he has some of his coaching sessions with them. And it was such a pleasure to be on his True Man podcast. And he helps so many people. He's such a great guy. And Mike, please share with our listening audience what you'd like to share with them today, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Hey, I hope nobody can see how red I am now. What an introduction. Wow. And listen, to follow you two folks up. Wow. I mean, Gail covered everything and EA's got great stories and he brought slides. I just brought myself. So, I hope nobody feels, like I'm shortcutting you. Now I'm very interactive. So I'm just going to, talk here for a short period of time and then you guys can fill in and maybe we can have a little Q&A. But, a lot of people ask me, so what is this whole true man thing? Where did you come up with that? Well, I'm not really all that creative. So I just flipped open the Bible and found out that Jesus Christ was a true man and boom, voila, a business is born. So True Man Life Coaching and the True Man podcast, we really just pulled that right out of the Bible because the whole idea of working with men is who's the model? Who's the person to follow? And, True Man started as a men's small group and we needed that model. So, we developed the whole True Man idea. The other thing people ask me is, what is a true man? And I got to tell you, I don't know that I will ever be finished trying to define that. That's something that I'm constantly looking at, but there's no doubt about it that at the core of a true man is Jesus Christ. That has to be at the center. And, I like to say that a true man defines his identity as honorable, courageous, spiritual, and purpose-driven man. He understands masculinity is found on the road to wisdom, accountability, and truth, and that Jesus modeled it for us to lead ourselves, our family, our calling, and our country well. So that's about as solid as a definition as I think I can create. And, why is this important? We are living in chaotic times. And Hollywood's portrayal of what a masculine man is wrong. It's actually much closer to how I just defined it. And I believe that in this chaotic world that we're living in, that men want to take back their hearts. So, Gail talked about, I took so many notes while this was going on because there was just so much amazing stuff going on here that she helps people get out of their head. I do the same thing. And in fact, what I introduce men to is something that they often miss. I help them get out of their head and get into their heart. And actually, I'm in the process of writing a book myself. So I'm doing tons and tons of research. Did you know, I just love these statistics, by the way. Did you know that the body carries 60,000 miles of blood vessels? And if you put that into context, that's approximately 3,000. It's 3,000 miles across the United States. So basically, you have a road trip in you. You could road trip across America 10 times. That's how many blood vessels you have in you. And those blood vessels point back to your heart. So why do I talk about the masculine heart? Because that is the center and the core of you as a human being. And it's something that, I try to get men back in touch with because that's where you will find your authenticity and your ability to be more vulnerable and keep it real and drop the mask. There's a little bit on a true man.
Well, Mike, I have a quick question for you.
Absolutely.
You were talking about, all the blood flow, and I have a question along that vein. I can share that with you. And
I got you.
All right. So why is it important for because first of all, Mike, I'm so with you on this, as you well know, my friend. And, and probably one of the best tapes I ever heard years ago was by a guy named J. Douglas Edwards, who was long passed on. And he had a cassette tape. There used to be things called cassette tapes, and
I remember.
It was audio cassette, and it was called Viva la Difference. And it was such an excellent. I still have the tape, and I've never heard anything like it. But all he did was talk about men and women are different, and they both are special, and they both have spectacular, unique gifts. Why are we trying to make one into the other? That's not the idea at all. The beauty is the fact that they're different. That's the beauty of it, right? And they are both special and spectacular and blessings. And it's called Viva la Difference. So excellent, so excellent. So why, Mike, is it important in today? We're really, I mean, if you talk masculinity, all of a sudden you're misogynistic and, all these, if you even say those words, oh man, what do you mean by that? The wing nuts come out at you. So the question I have for you then, why is it important then for a man to have a core belief?
Well, listen, everything that I look at, and I'm going through an evolution in my business where we're really, I take coaching seriously. I have coaches for everything. I have a golf coach. I have a book writing coach. I've had a podcast coach. I believe in it that much because it takes a lot of people to make you be the best version of you, period. Bottom line. Hey, listen, no big deal. You need a coach. Sometimes we all need a coach. Of course, I'm a golfer, so I always say, well, if Tiger Woods can have a coach, I need a coach, right?
Yes.
But where I check in on all this is when I evaluate something that I'm working on, So if I look at, situations or challenges that men have, whether it be on shame, anger, stress, loneliness, integrity, confidence, I circle back to the Bible and I go, okay, let's check in here. What does the Bible say about this? What does Scripture say about this? And I want to know what Scripture says, because here's the reality, EA, of what you're talking about. Sometimes, and I don't fully understand this, but I guess it's just the world we're living in. If I talk about masculinity, if I talk about men, believe it or not, I've come under attack. In fact, I had a social media post recently, and I thanked the person for putting out the quote. I was on a podcast. They put a quote out. I thanked them. And some guy responded, well, what about women? And I simply had to say, well, but I'm a men's life coach. There's nothing against women. I love women. Women are beautiful creatures, right? But there are, without question, and the Bible tells us this, and it should be obvious to us all, that there are differences between men and women. And that's perfectly okay. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's a great thing, and then we just have to figure out how to live with each other, right? That's part of it. I've been married for 26 years. We don't have a perfect marriage. Nobody does. And but you figure out how to get it done and work together, because at the end of the day, we have to model for our children. They're watching us, and that's how you build good families. And right now, in this country, the divorce rate, I don't remember what the actual statistic is, hovering around 51%, I believe is what it is. Listen, there's a wide range of reasons why marriages fail, and I get that. But, I mean, you got to find a way to work together. It's called teamwork. And it works in marriage just like it works on the court or on the field. And that's the bottom line. And as long as you have God at the center of it, you can virtually work through anything. And so I circle back to Scripture all the time to look at what I'm just checking in. Am I on track here? Is it real? Is it the truth? So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Good stuff.
Before we go on, I want to come back to Gail, because I know earlier I did not put up her information, but this is it, everybody. I want you to take a look, because she's changed her whole entity to become the pearlcollective.com. I want everybody to go to it, pick up her book. Gail, why, I'm going to ask you like a 2-minute, why did you decide to change in the middle of already a successful business?
That's a great question. And there is a time when, if you are operating your business under your own name, it makes it really hard for you to step away from the business. And I won't give my age today, but it's significant
You
enough.
look amazing for 24.
So you're very sweet.
She
But it really was just part of the thinking of where does the brand need to go for the longevity and also for the legacy of the business. And for me to do this, to create a business that will help the industry for years after I'm not walking this earth, which hopefully is many years from now, but also that we have something that our employees and our team members are proud of and want to be a part of beyond me. So it had to happen. So that's why we did it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And just with that note in mind, I'm inviting everybody here to my 100th birthday party.
I'll be there.
That's just the beginning for me, by the way. That's just me getting started. It'll be my 100th birthday.
That's great because I remember listening to George Burns. For those of you who remember who he was,
Oh yeah.
and he was talking about Caesar's Palace wanted him to appear at the Caesar's Palace on his 100th birthday, and he declined. And when they asked him why, he says, "I don't know if they'll still be around." I thought you gotta love it. You just have to love it.
Yeah.
We'll certainly be there, Rafael. And I'd love to be able to, at this point, introduce. I have to tell you, I don't know what day you're on, but I think it's like 310 or 320. You're in there somewhere.
14. 314.
314. All right. I was in there. So every single morning, Rafael does this amazing post. And I guess now he's going to be starting something each morning, give everyone a tip of the day, which is also excellent, by the way. And but when again, leaders always are willing to do exactly what they're saying everyone else should be showing, or what they should be doing. They show by example. They show by living it. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. And Rafael, who literally molds many, many young minds at his martial arts studio, because they come to him for advice and they come to him for training. That's what Sifu means. He's a trainer and instructor, and he teaches people, right? And a lot of people look to him for that. And we have a lot of people today trying to teach the wrong thing. And they're not teaching core values, and they're not teaching having your priorities in place. And also they're not leading by example. I heard all these people saying, if someone's elected to office, I'm leaving the country. And I just want to buy these guys tickets, if I could just, because they're not leaving yet. And I said, you said you promised you were going to leave, and they're still here, they're still here. I thought, what the heck with these wingnuts? Anyway, and Rafael, he walks his talk. When he says he's going to do something, you can count on it being done. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what a leader does? And it's that lifestyle, that mindset that he's always constantly driving home with people, not only because he's saying it, but because he's doing it. That's what a mentor does. They lead by example. They have their intellect control their emotions. Their emotions do not control their intellect. And he's that kind of person. He has just become a great friend. And I've watched him. I personally witnessed testimonials from other people and saying how he's impacted their life and the things he's done for them, and parents that have been very grateful for how he took their children, and just by leading by example, gave them, a good example to follow, good core values and good mindset. And he is the classic example of what a true mentor is. They live it, they share it, and they don't just say, just do this because I say, but don't pay attention to what I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a doer and leads by example, and he's such a great leader. So I look forward to being able to find out what he has to share with everyone today, as mentoring, certainly for our entire listening audience. Rafael, please share if you would.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And where do I send the check again? Did you move, didn't you?
Yep. Yes. And I'll put it in a private chat, so he'll have the address.
Thank you. I would love to talk to you guys about what is your worth. And Gail already touched on it. All of you, EA touched on it. Mike touched on it. It is, what is your worth? So let's find out, what is your worth? How do you know what your worth is, right? What are you good at? Let me ask you that. What are you good at? And once you start to find out what you're good at, then you start to understand that other people may want to learn from you. They may want to copy what you're good at because you're good at it, right? Maybe you've done it maybe your whole life And you don't realize it till somebody goes, hey, I love the way you do that. Would you mind sharing that with me? That's when you start understanding that you have a worth. We all do, every one of us, right? All my past has brought me to being who I am today. Without my past, I have no today, right? So my actions today are going to lead my tomorrows. I always talk about that. So, and then how do you show up, right? How do you show up? Do you show up all disheveled, not knowing what's going on? Or do you come with things in mind? For example, who shows up with a game plan? When you go to a party, how do you show up? When you go to a business meeting, how do you show up? When you go to an event, how do you show up? It's the show up that's going to let people know who you are, and then also what you're worth. And then what do you think you're worth? I'm not talking about your bank account. What are you worth in the world? Not in just your community, but overall. 100 years after you've passed, like Gail said, she's creating a legacy. I'm creating a legacy. So 500 years from now, people will say, I'm doing this because of Rafael. I'm doing this because of what he shared 500 years ago. I'm doing this because it matters, because it is making an impact in my life. So is your worth only temporary, or is your worth something you can leave after you're gone? That's what I'm asking you to do. Think about, what do you think you're worth? And how do you show up? Who determines your worth? I'm going to tell you the most important aspect of this, and Gail talked about it, and Mike talked about it, and EA talked about it. It's that mindset. It's your mindset. What are you worth? And who determines that? Who determines your worth? I'm going to tell you, you do. You determine your worth. Don't allow someone else to tell you you're only worth this amount or that amount. You can go, listen, when was the last time you Googled yourself to find out your worth? Forget that. Know internally what you're worth. You are in control of your worth by your actions, the people you associate with, the people you don't associate with, right? As EA said, you're in the wrong room if everybody's in there is an idiot and you're not, right? If you're an idiot, then you fit right in, right? So here's the thing. Your actions, I said it before, your actions will help you establish your worth. Everything you do every single day, when you wake up, what you think about. Are you reading the Bible? Are you reading a book? Are you brushing your teeth? Are you dressing correctly so you can show up? Don't just show up for yourself. Of course, you have to show up for yourself, but show up for your family. Show up so that they can be proud of you. But first, you have to be proud of yourself. And then, how often do you do a self-check on your worth? Every day, start with a self-check. Look in the mirror. Are you proud of what you did yesterday? Did your yesterdays help you with what you're doing today? And what you do today, will it help you be worth more at the end of the day? Listen, we all start with 0 when the clock hits 12, and then it hits 12:01. We have 1 second, and we have 24 hours to create a worth living, right? You may be sleeping at that time, but your thoughts, your intentions, what you planned the night before. So when you do wake up, for me, listen, I've had adversity in my life. I had polio as a kid. So I understand what the ability to walk is because I lost that ability. Last night was a special night for me. I woke up every hour with cramps. that did not let me stop my legs. I had cramps all over my legs. It did not allow me to stop what I need to do today. That's just part of me. It didn't allow me to stop from doing my workout this morning and sharing it with you. I'm going to ask everybody, if you're listening to my voice, to make your life worth living. Become what you know you're worth. You are an exceptional, exceptional human being. By the way, I have a new program coming up. It's 49 days straight starting January 1st. Hit me up. I will take you on an extraordinary journey of health and fitness and mindset. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to my co-host and my amazing guests for even allowing me to share with you what I know is an important aspect. Know your worth. Because when other people don't believe in you, you have to believe in yourself. Thank you for letting me share as well.
That's awesome. What great information. And for those of you who haven't followed, look up Sifu Rafael on LinkedIn, and his posts will start to show up for you, if you will, and you'll watch him. I mean, he does every single day. It's usually something, 10 minutes or less exercise, but he shows you don't have to do a lot. It's the consistency. And that's the point he's driving home with, 314 days in a row, no matter what. Even when he travels, he goes out to California and he's trying to get out there and get back before it falls off in the ocean. And everyone in LA has to surf. Yeah. Before everyone in California has to surf to Denver, so you got to, he's got to get back in time. But even when he's at a hotel, you can see he's there. He's posting again. He's working out, doing his workout that day. And they're usually 10 minutes or less. But it drives the point home. It's the consistency. It's what you do on the long haul. It's not the one thing you did today. It's the what you today, tomorrow, the next day. And it's the little things. It's the cumulative effect that will really take us down the road. And Rafael's such a wonderful, wonderful example of predictive, massive, and exceptional happiness, freedom, and greatness, because that's the life that he leads. And he shows how to live it. So make sure that you do check in with them. You can see we've got December 9th coming up, 2 exceptional guests. I don't think it's Gail and Mac Van Pelt, but I think it's someone else.
No, that didn't work again. I'll tell you who it is. All right.
Okay.
It's going to be Janet Schmidt and Elizabeth Lois. So 2 amazing guests. And I don't know, I changed that and it just kept going back. It's because you guys are so powerful, Mike and Gail. You guys, I know you guys want to come back, and we'll definitely have to have
Absolutely.
you.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
By the way,
sure.
and EA mentioned it, I do have a new show coming up. It's going to be New Tip Daily, and that's going to be coming out very soon. And it's going to be every day, Monday through Friday, and it's going to be a new tip daily. So tune in for that as well.
And it's going to be good stuff. It's not going to be like, don't spit in the wind. That's a tip. Yeah. Don't play the horses. That's a tip.
I think he stole it from me.
Don't tug on Superman's cape. That's a tip. It's not that kind of stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I think he stole it from me. I think he stole the true man tip of the day.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
No, I cannot steal that from you, because you are the true man.
That's true. And that's true. And Gail, so much great information. I think you bring so much to the table that's so vital for people that, when people, your ability to be able to get people to understand they have a choice, this thing we do that you clearly masterfully articulate, this thing we do 35 times a minute, 1,250,000 times a year. We have this little conversation with ourselves in our own head. 1,250,000 times a year, we have that conversation. And Gail, you bring so much to the table, and helping people, have a good conversation. Personally, when I have that conversation, I don't like when I go, huh? Because that's not good.
Unless a little schizo like me, I have 10 times of those.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
You guys are so funny.
Yeah. We like to have fun.
You're all a gift. And everyone listening, I hope you really enjoy all of this, because I love the heart and the soul and the things you all shared. Brilliant.
Sifu, you are an awesome leader, and Mike Van
Thank you,
Pelt,
my friend.
love you, brother. You are awesome. And Gail, thank you so much for the great information. And sort of as a closing words for myself, I would like to share with everyone that the biggest tragedy in life is certainly not death. It certainly is what dies inside of us while we are alive.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let those things around you, don't let those people around you cause an early death so that you become John Average, who was born at 1900. He marries Mary Mediocre, has the average 2.3 kids, 2 pets, has an average life. He's buried in 1930. I'm sorry, he dies in 1930 and he's buried in 1970. So don't die early and then get buried 40 years later.
And I
Follow
love
people like Sifu.
I love what Mike said about, get out of your head and go to your heart, because we all have to be more heart-centered and lead with love and compassion. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
When you were talking about worth, I was thinking about worthy, because more often than not, I have to remind people that you are worthy. And
you're also worth more.
yeah, you're worth more. And, but right, it's about that action. Gail mentioned it. We talked about it here. It's about taking that action. You're worthy if you want to be.
That's it. Wow, everybody, thank you so much. You have an amazing and blessed rest of your day. Bye,
and
everybody.
As we say at Givers University, don't just have a good day. Have your best day
Best
ever.
day ever.